and then there were 4. This is the round 1 recap for the playoffs here at this 16th season of Blood, Sweat, and Beers. When you come into the playoffs, whether you're playing in the first round or not, how do you feel about the players that have gotten you there versus someone with a potential hot hand? I know that there's always a difficult decision. If you have a good record, and the 10-4 teams obviously did, do you stick with who got you there, even if maybe they're not projected quite as highly as some of your other players? Or do you try to catch lightning? Do you try to just ride the hot hand and go with whoever seems to be projected the best, has the best matchup, has the best potential, the highest ceiling? That was a tough decision, I know, for me, even though it didn't end up mattering at all. But it just got me thinking, if it comes down to a coin toss and you're going into another round, and obviously each round gets successively more important, if you're juggling 2-3 players that are right around the same spot, is it the guy that you've been riding all year? Or do you try to pull something fancy? I know that there's a risk reward probably to both. Let's take a look at this the games here, the scores for round 1 here of our playoffs. Our first game, it was just a beatdown. The only good thing that came out of this was the fact that Kamish closed the gap from 60 points down on Sunday night to about 40 points, 42 points down by the end of the game Monday night. So, I don't know. There's no victory there, moral or otherwise. If you take a look at the overall scores or potential scores and the pop, there was nothing, absolutely nothing. When Goff and Adams combined for just over 102 points between the two of them, it would have taken a Herculean effort to try to overcome that, and it was not to be. We see that Boogers could have broken 200, and that would have been fun for him, although over 180 points the last 2 weeks now. He's going to look to ride that hot hand. Whoever he drops in there seems to be doing well. Could this be Booger's year? The year of the Boogers? None of that sounds good, but it's going to take a lot of points as he heads into next week's matchup with Mr. Snuffy. Our next game that mattered, Skibbity pulled one out. Sorry, Puzzles. It's not going to happen. That Brian Thomas snafu, that was the end of it. It would have taken Brian Thomas in place of Cooper Kupp to get the win. As you look at the potentials and the pop, we want to give a shout out to Aaron for dropping 100 when it most mattered. Although Brian Thomas in the lineup instead of Cooper Kupp, and it wouldn't have mattered. But be that as it may, the only team without a winning record still around in the playoffs. In fact, the only team without 10 wins, because everybody else has 10 wins. So we'll see if Aaron can make some noise, shake up the top there as he goes into the second round of the playoffs. We know he will be facing Alex Billy in the number 1 seed. Does he have enough? Well, he scored more points than him during the regular season. We'll see if he can do it one more time in week 16, round 2. Now, taking a quick look, just so that nobody feels left out, looking at the consolation ladder, literally the games that make no difference whatsoever. Jersey Birds over top of Poncho, and Gloop falls to Pet Detectives. Quick look at the potentials and the pops. Everybody did fairly well. Gloop slid down into the 80s, but otherwise 97s there in that one contest. Jersey Birds could have just broken 200 himself. What I love about this is that Jersey Birds, Ian, you waited till the game that literally meant nothing to score the most points you've scored all season. I guess A for effort. A's don't mean anything, but good for you. Broke 190 for nothing. All right, and of course, Pet Detectives. He wins out that one. Third best score for him for the on the year. It doesn't really matter. Like I said, these games make no difference. This next week for your consolation ladder, this is the game that matters the most. If you win this week, you play for either 7th or 8th place, which means you cannot come in last at the end of the season. If you lose this week, you're playing for 9th or 10th place, which means if you lose this week, you have to win next week, or we're changing your name. And I really, really hope whoever ends up winning takes that responsibility a little more seriously. Now, standings don't matter. Total pops don't matter. 2 of our teams would just say that they didn't really try anyway, and that's okay. Going into the playoff round 2, we've got number 1 versus number 5. So we'll look at that. Read option versus Skibbity, AB versus AA. We'll see if number 1 can take out to number 5. And on the flip side, we've got number 2 versus number 3. They have split their games. And what's interesting is in both matchups between Boogers and Mr. Snuffy, is it funny that Mr. Snuffy has a really long nose and he's going against Boogers? Could Boogers be his kryptonite? There's a joke in there somewhere. I'll work on that, or you guys work on that. Anyway, when Boogers and Snuffy met twice in the regular season, the loser didn't break 100 in both games. And we know what, unfortunately, what Boogers did just a couple weeks ago with that really ugly sub 90 point game. Let's hope he can continue on with his 180 plus and knock Mr. Snuffy off, and see if we can have a new championship crown this year. Well, we'll see what happens. Enjoy round 2.